Hi, everyone. This is Erica. Welcome to our November session. We're doing this on LinkedIn Live, and we're also doing it live on Instagram. So, in case you've never met me before or you've been involved, haven't been involved, my name is Ericka Hines, and I am the founder and CEO of Black Women Thriving, or BWT as we call it, where we help organizations make thriving structural, measurable, and actually doable. Our belief is that when Black women thrive, everyone thrives. A lot of our work is around sense making, like how do we make sense of what's happening in organizations, in companies, in departments, and then helping leaders understand what we're seeing inside of their organization and what they can do to either address something before it becomes a crisis or continue doing things that work. So today, we are going to look at one of the biggest forces shaping work right now, and that is trust. Um, a little bit about trust before I begin. I know that trust has been a popularized term in the business world for several years now. There's lots of books that have been about trust building, trust building, building trust, having teams where trust is important, um, which clearly points to a few things. One, that it's important, it's an important value to have inside of your organization, like we value trust, but also I think it also speaks to just how important trust is inside of organizations. And at Black Women Thriving, we look at trust as a metric. So we don't just look at trust as a feeling or just a vibe, like, do you trust each other? No, we look at trust as a system, something that when trust is there, the system improves. And when trust isn't there, the system is in trouble. And in like business and leadership terms, I would encourage you to think about that in terms of trust being something that determines whether people stay, people perform, or if they are on a fast road to burnout. All right. So let's get into it. I want to give you some context for the what I've been thinking about and what we on the team have been thinking about in terms of trust in this year, 2025. So a lot has happened this year. The context that I want to set for you, uh, and because we focus on Black women, is this year more than 300,000 Black women left the labor force. And let's be clear, as I've said on multiple platforms, most did not go or quietly because they chose to leave. Many were pushed out, given early retirement, forced to resign. Many were laid off, right? Um, and because of that, there's been a tremendous amount of attrition inside of organizations. And before even Black women as a part of the workforce were experiencing this sort of tremendous gulf in terms of losing colleagues. Um, Black women have traditionally always operated in survival mode. When a group like Black women have been forced to historically adapt, endure, and contribute at disproportionate levels in organizations that in organizational cultures that one were not only been built were not built for us, but also have truly sort of fought back in terms of becoming adaptive to us. We shouldn't consider that to be a footnote. It's actually a sign of a system failing. And so when I'm talking about a system, what I'm talking about is your organization, like your organization as a system. So if we think about that as system failure, if we think about the fact that Black women, when they're in, those who left were a sign of system failure. And for Black women who are still working there, now in a place where trust has been fractured, it's also a sign of system failure. It tells us that the conditions are becoming unsustainable. Um, and I would argue that these conditions have been moving towards unsustainability, if that's a word, I just made it up, for a long time. Before the layoffs even occurred, Black women were already navigating low trust environments. For example, research after research after research study has shown that in crisis, Black women tend to become hypervisible, especially if they're in leadership positions. But then conversely, when it's time for recognition, Black women suddenly become invisible. We've also seen in research that Black women have had to do a lot of emotional labor in terms of supporting their cultures. And during the time just a few years ago when we were all doing DEI work, um, unfortunately, a lot of that fell onto our Black, Indigenous, and people of color. But I'm going to sort of highlight the number of Black women who were asked to step in and carry and take on the weight of that additional labor. And I would say traditionally, given just Black women's place in history, um, some of those generalizations and some of those stereotypes have definitely transferred to workplaces. So the reason that I bring those up and I bring up like all of these examples is because these are all ways that as Black women, these are all ways that would illustrate to you that for most of us in the workplace, we really do have very low trust of our colleagues and our leadership. So for us, um, trust hasn't just started cracking. It's actually been cracking all along. It was already broken. So let's fast forward from that time until now, or look at that impact to what's happening now. Again, in addition to 300,000 Black women being laid off, let me tell you what leaders have just started to see inside of their organizations. Um, these large scale exits don't just impact the people who leave. They change how everyone who stays evaluates their own safety and how power is being wielded inside of organizations. The part that nobody's talking about, maybe because they're just starting to realize it, and maybe because we don't talk about power enough, because, well, talking about power can get you into trouble, but I get to talk about power, is that when people see instability, which has happened internally and externally, exits, layoffs, shifting priorities, they start asking real questions. They start feeling and thinking and asking each other, am I next? Can I trust what I'm being told? Who's making the decisions about who stays and who is leaving? And what are they prioritizing? And is any of this secure? I would ask you, if you're listening to this or you're um, a, if you're listening to this now or later, I'd ask you if you have started to hear those things inside of your organization. Is that what's happening? I mean, if you're back at work, is that what's happening at the water cooler? Are those the messages that are being, direct messages that are being sent on Slack? I think people feel a tremendous sense of instability. And if you yourself have been feeling that, feeling tired, disconnected, unsure, I want to tell you actually that nothing is wrong with you. Because I think that that's something else that comes up from trust. Like if we don't feel like we can trust folks, then we feel like we're in an unstable environment. Operating in an unstable environment makes you tired. It quickly leads to burnout. Your nervous system is responding to the fact that you don't feel like the sands are shifting underneath you. And that's not a problem with you. That's a problem with the system. And it's also a problem of the fact that there's unstable power dynamics and a lack of transparency. But it's not you. If you are a leader and you're thinking about trust, or this is, uh, you are thinking about what else is impacting trust, I want you to also think about the fact that trust is eroding outside of your organization as well. Again, whether you all have had layoffs, most companies in America have had to do some sort of shifting around their staffing. Mass layoffs, reorgs, condensing of departments, getting rid of whole like fields of people. That is a big thing that's been happening in the workplace. But on top of that, workplaces are also experiencing AI anxiety, DEI rollbacks, DEI rollbacks that are happening inside of organizations, but are also happening inside of this country, budget freezes. We're also navigating a whole bunch of political and social instability. And it's creating sort of this continual stress on us that people, as much as they would like to compartmentalize it, they're bringing into work. So the trust erosion that's happening inside of work is only compounded by the trust erosion that's happening outside of work. Now, why am I hitting this so hard? Is because compound like stress over here and stress over here, compounded stress leads to burnout, presenteeism, and health impacts. Something as a leader and manager that you probably want to be paying attention to. So, I want to tell you a little bit about what Black Women Thriving has been doing to think about, educate, work with organizations in terms of trust. One thing that we've done is we have identified some early indicators that we believe. Oh, I see a comment. Actually, I'm going to stop here because I'm going to read said comment. Um, yes, lots of us are feeling exhausted from all that. There's an instability at multiple levels. Exactly, exactly. So that definitely leads into the piece that I'm going to talk about next, which is trust is one of the early whistles, canary whistles that we hear. At Black Women Thriving, we have put together a set of early indicators that are based upon Black women's experience that we call the Canary Code, and trust is one of those. What we talk about in terms of trust and Black women being the canaries is that Black women in 2025 aren't canaries because they left. They're canaries because of how they were treated and what the treatment is revealing. And that's what I've spent the last few moments talking about. What does that treatment reveal? As I said, their exits haven't been a warning. It's the conditions that led to those exits that should be the warning. And in organizations, if you think about and you're looking at your teams if you're looking about people's sentiments about trust inside of their organizations, you need to be looking at that from the vantage point, not just in aggregate, but in disaggregated form as well. So we need to see what everybody's saying about trust, and then we need to break that out by race, gender, tenure, role, etc. Because what you find out in those disaggregated numbers, that's where you can see that the trust is really breaking. And when organizations don't repair at those points, right? Those like sort of um, smaller pinhole surgical points, they are just fast tracking themselves to having a larger issue. So this brings us to a key truth that we believe at Black Women Thriving, um, and that research around, I mean, whether it's around trust or it's around thriving research. Trust is so important inside of organizations that we have to start treating it as vibes. We can't sort of sit there and be like, I trust you. Do you trust me? Everybody trust each other. It's really important that we have trust amongst us. No, because when pressure happens, trust goes quickly. Trust has to be something that leaders need to think about in terms of something that they can see, measure, and protect. Just like any other part of the system that keeps an organization healthy. Trust, having high trust is a form of having a healthy organization. And having a healthy organization, which I'm just going to follow that thread, is a part of having an organization where people feel productive and good about their jobs. And if that's something that you care about, which I'm just going to put a fine point on this. Hopefully, we are feeling at the end of 2025 and into 2026, because people haven't been feeling that way for a while. Then you need to start paying attention to trust as a metric and how you can look at it and fix what you suddenly begin to see. Because we treat trust as a system, at Black Women Thriving, we map where trust leaks. We use that to look at 8 different dimensions of trust, and we have a tool as a part of our toolkit, where I'm getting some water here, you all, because, that's what one does. As I said, at Black Women Thriving, one of the things that we've done with trust and to help you all in terms of your organizations and as leaders is we put together a toolkit around trust. And it's where we have been able to map where trust leaks, or can help you map where trust leaks, in 8 different areas: manager behavior, decision making, workload, opportunity, belonging, and psychological safety. We've put together a question bank that we offer to leaders and organizations to use in any number of instances, whether that's like one-on-one, in teams, or even if you all are doing pulse checks, that will allow you to start to see where trust is breaking down or where trust is strong. And we've done it with an equity analysis. So in terms of the questions that we offer you, we also encourage you and have some dimensions where we say, here's how you can apply an equity analysis to the answer. By doing this, what we're trying to do is take the guesswork out of whether you have high trust or low trust inside of your organizations. What we're really trying to do and be helpful in doing, and helping leaders help their teams, is we're trying to help you create a map of what's working, what's not, and where to start in terms of building more trust. I'm going to close here by saying Black women have survived workplaces that weren't designed for us, as I've said, forever. It's beyond time for that to change. I know that that's not the politique thing to say. It doesn't mean that the conditions don't exist and the changes still don't need to happen. Black women, their colleagues, and organizations overall, what I have seen in 2025 is that folks are living in survival mode. Okay. Folks are working in survival mode, and survival mode should not be the status quo that we continue to expect or to have as our baseline for ourselves, our teams, and our organizations. We need to rebuild trust as a strategy, not because it's the nice thing to do, because it's something that we need to do. It's how your organization is going to continue to weather uncertainty. Thank you for being here, and we hope that this has been helpful and that we can, at Black Women Thriving, be a place that helps you create trustworthy organizations and teams that move your organizations from surviving to thriving. Thank you.